Jai Guruji Sagaji. We continue our reading, and today we start with chapter "And You Shall Become Guruji's Own." एक तकिया भरोसा तेरे चरना दा होर सबे ढाइयां ढेरिया. I trust you alone. I have demolished every other support, base, faith, theory, or system. I worship you alone. This Shabad engraved itself on my mind, and I ensured I chose one, Guruji. You choose one and then worship him or her. As Krishna said to Arjuna in the Gita, which is the purest form of dialogue between God and a human being, you become who you worship. This is an amazing philosophy. If we worship properly, then we move into the same domain as the entity we decided to worship. That means all the virtues of the entity you worship will come into you. Arjun would become an extension of Krishna as his identity gets dissolved in Krishna, and no difference remains between the two. In some Shabads that were played at Mandir, the consequences of vacillating in worship were clearly laid out. If we worship an assemblage of deities, then either we become nothing or we get to nowhere. Vitally, our loyalty is also compromised and becomes questionable. Whom do we really have faith in? Who do we really love? One Shabad explains that a calf always goes to its own mother, who provides for and protects him. If this young and vulnerable calf goes to another, mistaking it for the mother cow, all that it gets is a strong kick. It loses out on nurturing and protection. It is left to fend for itself. Similarly, if we don't stick to one Guru, our Guruji, we are deprived of wholesome protection and spiritual guidance. We also remain endlessly confused about our sense of direction. Like I said earlier, when we want to go to Bombay, we sit on a train that takes us to Bombay. If we keep jumping trains that are moving in different directions to different destinations, where will we end up? We will be in a rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland. There are grave risks if we make a wrong choice. How do we choose our Guru? How do we know who is the right Guru? This is where the law of attraction comes into play. We will attract a Guru meant for us, and our designated Guru will attract us. To a large extent, this will happen naturally, as long as we do not get in our designated Guru's way. We don't need to do anything. We let it be, making no effort to specifically choose one. Eventually, on our own, we will get to the right Guru. As much as we are seeking a Guru, the Guru is desperately seeking us. As long as we do not do anything actively silly, we will get to the Guru we are destined for, and that is the best thing that can happen to us. Our destiny will make it happen. But how do we not do anything? By ensuring that we do not apply our mind. Guruji used to say this, as the Sangat knows, leave your intelligence along with your shoes at the shoe stand. The mind is a hindrance in connecting with the divine. The divine is beyond the functions of our brains. If we continuously use our brains, we will have huge difficulty in connecting with him. What is the essential characteristics of our mind? It teaches us how to differentiate and judge with reference to the unique psychological background we have. Essentially, the mind takes its identity from its unique psychological setup or tendencies we call sanskaras, and then looks out at the external world. Its chief function is to compare. Comparison is the end result of our use of intelligence. An old TV ad for a washing powder was founded on this deep-rooted attribute. Its tagline was, "Why his shirt whiter than mine?" In the process, our mind is being tempted to compare and switch to another washing powder. This application of mind does not stop even when devotees come to Guruji. Devotees are tempted to interact among Sangat to compare their blessings. Once they come to know the process other Sangat follow to receive specific blessings, their mind immediately kicks in and they decide to imitate with the belief, if this ritual has worked for him, it must work for me too. The mind has forced the devotee to take the initiative, but he has made the mistake of defining his connection with Guruji based on another devotee's experience. Clearly, his focus is not on Guruji. His focus is on the processes being followed by others. To him, a result-oriented ritual is any day better and preferable compared to the endless wait to become blessing ready. He enters into a bargain with the fountainhead of spirituality and inevitably ends up cutting the very legs of his own faith. His mind keeps comparing and walking in other Sangat's footsteps rather than letting his own connection with Guruji to evolve. This is how the mind functions. It compares. It compares different gurus and wants to go to the one who, in the mind's assessment, is most likely to fulfill his desires faster, responds quicker, and is overall better for one's ego. It's like switching doctors and the treatment protocol in the middle of a health crisis. The end result is that the patient's health is severely compromised and he would be worse off than before. This comparison is endless. If we are not careful, we can end up going around in circles as devotees. Our minds will make us wander between gurus and rituals. Chances are that such devotees may become superstitious and fearful. They may become narrow-minded and vociferous believers, but their minds will never let them develop genuine trust in Guruji. Another thing that derives a devotee here and there is his fear. The desire to have what he doesn't have and fear of losing what he already has, which is one and the same thing. Every fear is a modification of the fear of death. You want to live forever in spite of knowing that in this whole universe, everybody has eventually died. Death is the fundamental truth of existence. Everybody dies. The bravest, the biggest, the most powerful, the saints, the do-gooders, and the not so do-gooders. Animals, insects, plants, everybody has to die. As a Buddhist axiom has it, the end of accumulation is dispersion. The end of building is ruin. The end of meeting is parting. And the end of birth is death. But we want to find ways to extend our ownership and our identity. The fear of losing wealth, of falling sick, of losing relationships, of losing respect, of losing love is a unitary fear manifesting in different reactions. This fear gives huge impetus to our mental chatter. Put simply, most of us don't like what we have, desire what others have while also hanging on to what we have. This desire constantly drives us and it becomes our default thought process. When we come across a guru, our mind immediately goes into overdrive. First evaluating the guru, followed by the submission of a never-ending list of all our needs and desires. Guruji can give us what is asked for as long as it is beneficial for us. In fact, when we meet the divine in the form of our guru, all that he says to us is, don't ask me for anything. Accept me as I am and I'll accept you as you are. As Guruji Maharaj said, Guru Kolum Mango Na. Guru nu manno. This is easier said than done, though. Most of the people come to Guruji looking for solutions to the problem they faced. That is the sole purpose. When they are told that there is no need to communicate their problems with Guruji, it is hard to believe. Many would simply walk away in search for someone else who could listen to their problems and meet their expectations. But the lucky ones hang around long enough to realize that with Guruji Maharaj, the divine Shiva, Brahm, we need to simply commune, not communicate. We need to just tune in. The rest follows. Those who are able to commune with him, tune in, become his Sangha. They become his devotees while the rest remain part of the crowd. Guruji's Sangat quickly figures out that Guruji does not want anything from them in return. He is not seeking any benefits. This is no trade. Otherwise, he too could ask about their troubles, indicate remedies, quickly make a tidy profit and pack them off on their way. But Guruji isn't asking them because here's the crucial difference. He is the divine in human form. He is beyond the illusion of the material world. As a matter of fact, he is the creator of this illusion. Guruji doesn't need to be told. He knows what is good for his Sangat and when and how it has to be given to them without their karma getting in the way. When he blesses his Sangat, it is not as a result of their activities or penances. It is out of his own kindness and grandeur that he gives. If Guruji gives them a better paying job, for instance, he has bequeathed it to them. It's not a loan. They don't have to repay it like a karmic debt. And they don't have to do anything in return. If Guruji is blessing them, he is not restructuring their karmic debt. If he cures an ailment, it is not that the same disease will come years later or in the next life. If he fixes it forever. For that to happen, a devotee must follow the basic rule. Accept the Guru unconditionally. There's no need to devise rituals to get from Guruji what is wanted. One must let it be and rather, like a witness, observe what Guruji does to his or her life. Guruji has promised us that if we hand over the reins of our chariot to him, he will lead it straight. When Krishna became Arjun's charioteer in the war of the Mahabharata, he himself took control of the life of his disciples. We also have a chariot. We live in that chariot. It consists of the body, its senses, intelligence, eye sense, and other psychological coverings. That chariot needs to be driven through the right path to the right place. For that, Guruji would like us to hand over control of our chariot to him. How difficult can it possibly be? What is it that is required to build that trust in Guruji that we let go of the control? What will it take for us to simply say to Guruji, Guruji, this is not my life. This is yours now. Go ahead, do exactly what you want to do with it. Fortunately, our Guruji Maharaj isn't interested in preaching theories surrounding the spiritual world. He's a practical Guru. He simply makes us listen and watch the changes that have already happened to the lives of his devotees who successfully handed over the control of their lives to him. For this purpose alone, he established the tradition of sharing of experiences, the satsangs among his Sangha. The more we listen, the more we trust. The more we trust, the more we cede control. The more we cede control, the more we become blessings ready. The more we become blessings ready, the more we get blessed. And the more we get blessed, more we trust. This eventually leads us to cede complete control to Guruji, a state of complete surrender. In that state, we are blessing ready, in commune with Guruji without any need to communicate with Guruji at all. A surrendered soul exists within Guruji, and Guruji exists within the soul. There is just one aspect to keep in mind. A surrender with conditions is really not a surrender. A partial surrender is also not a surrender. It is either complete or not at all. This is brought out in the incident related to Draupadi's rescue by Lord Krishna in Mahabharata. Here's the story in short. The 5 Pandavas had a common wife, Draupadi, who they lost to their 100 cousins, the Kauravas, in a fixed game of dice. One of the Kauravas began to disrobe Draupadi, unraveling her sari. She prayed to Krishna to rescue her. Krishna was watching the scene from afar, along with his wife Rukmini. Your sister is calling out to you for help. She is alone there. Why don't you help her? His wife pleaded. Krishna told her to watch more attentively. Draupadi is still holding on to her sari with one hand. She is calling out to me as an additional optional resource. She hasn't fully surrendered to me. She still thinks she can handle it, Krishna pointed out. As the very last strap of her sari was tugged at, Draupadi let go, folded her hands in prayer and said to Krishna, if you want your sister to be disrobed and humiliated, then have it your way. It was then that her surrender was complete and she ceded complete control to Krishna. At that point, she became blessing ready. Instantly, her sari gained yards after yards of immeasurable length and her honor was preserved. We can't have dual control over our chariots, our lives. There's no point in acting as Draupadi initially did and complain that Guruji didn't help. You first let go and then observe. That brings us to another question. How do we realize that we have let go, that we have surrendered, that we have started believing in Guruji completely? The law of nature says that we cannot be at opposite extreme at the same time. Likewise, we cannot be manne wala and mangne wala both at the same time. We can either demand or we can surrender. It is a journey that may start as mangne wala, but it must conclude as manne wala. To start with, let us try not to ask. We try not to give in to the temptation of asking anything. If required, let us fight with our ego internally. Let us refuse to be the ones who ask. We will gradually move to the other extreme of belief and surrender. We will progress to being blessings ready. A combination of surrender to Guruji, acceptance of the circumstances and belief in Guruji's promise will make a devotee blessing ready. But how will this unfold? Here is my 2 cents worth. First, deny yourself the right to desire and complain. Listen to the satsangs of other sangat. Hope that just like in case of other sangat, Guruji's blessings are headed your way. But do not ask. Resist the temptation. This is crucial. You may not have faith, but have hope. Have hope in the face of adversity. With time, Guruji will take care of you, just like he has done for millions. Maybe you will go through some upheaval or have some troubles along the way, but by not asking, you automatically and gradually cede control to Guruji. With time, the realization will happen on its own. As soon as you realize that he knows, the issue will be solved for good. This realization will bring you a little closer to accepting him. Not asking will become a lot easier. Slowly, you will graduate from I will not ask to I do not need to ask. From I do not need to ask to I'm happy with whatever Guruji gives. From I'm happy with whatever Guruji gives to I'm happy being with Guruji. At this point, the surrender is complete. In short, you eventually realize that Guru is all that you ever wanted in the first place. You also realize that Guruji does for you what he does out of sheer love for you. It all started with you deciding to not to ask Guruji for anything. I have this divine Guru in my life. What else do I want? As soon as this feeling dawns, everything becomes simple. He has the control. Your life will not fall apart because the reins are in his hands. You will go along a better road because he's leading you on. You will reach your destination. As soon as you stop asking, the floodgates of blessings open because now you have become blessings ready. Jo Hari Jape, so Hari Hoye. The one who worships God becomes God. And the one who becomes God doesn't need to ask. He is in a position to just will it to happen and it happens. Because his will is one with the divine. As the Shabad has it, Jo mange Thakur apne se soi soi deve. Whatever I ask from my master, he provides. The word apne se are important. That means the disciple claims the Guru as his own. He has established the eternal tie of first-hand kinship with the Guru. Then the second line is even more wonderful. Nanak Das mukh se jo bole, yahan wahan sach hoye. Once such an identity has been established, whatever the devotee prophesies happens. That means that by accepting your Guru, by connecting to your Guru, by surrendering to him, and by worshipping your Guru, you are well on the path to become a part of his existence. You lose your false and temporary identity. And from someone who came like a beggar to his door, you actually become the grand giver yourself. So when Guruji says, Mango nahi, manno, he means if you accept me unconditionally, you will not have any need to ask. The devotee not only entrusts himself to the Guru, but he also goes beyond prayer. A devotee can beseech the Guru to be with him, but the devotee who realizes his oneness with the Guru affirms that the Guru is with him all the time. Guru Angsang Sada Hai Nale. Such a disciple leaves the Guru with no choice because the devotee is coming from the standpoint of truth. And the Guru is truth. So how can such a disciple be denied? When Lord Krishna says, those who worship me, they come to me. The word worship is still there. There's a worshipper and an object of worship. Arjun, the disciple, asked Krishna the best way of connecting to him and getting his blessings. The answer translated from our context is, those who do rituals and spend their time in understanding the ways of God, and those who indulge in processes, they sometimes get to me. But it is easy for those who go about doing their routine work, even as they remember me all the time. They get to me without any difficulty. Guruji wants us to walk the middle path. We are neither to become home-renouncing ascetics or be men of the world. We have to stay balanced and become a rasik bairagi. That is a person who is detached from the world even as he fulfills all his roles in it. His guideline for achieving this is to build around a wholesome family where a husband takes care of the wife takes care of the husband, and they together take care of their children. They also love, respect, and trust each other, being responsible for one another and among themselves. This enables Guruji to be easily present with the family and bless them. The best form of seva is to remember God while engaged in life. As the autobiography of a yogi says, a true man is he who dwells in righteousness among his fellow men, who buys and sells, yet is never for a single instant forgetful of God. We move to the next chapter, Guruji, the amazing Shiva. Guruji, in spite of being Lord Shiva himself, always kept his connection with his Sangat very simple. In a way, though, it was nice. For if he had not interacted like a human, we would have not been able to approach him so easily. If he had let us know of his true self, a relationship with him would have become unimaginable for a lesser mortal like me. He was our Guru and also our father, the head of the family, the ever-loving mother. We could go in front of him and cry. We could laugh. He would cut jokes and we would enjoy those. He would appear visibly upset and we would get scared. By coming down to our level, he made it possible for us to relate with him. Now we know better, principally because the new Sangat has shown us and taught us all the while that Lord Shiva himself sat on that asana. Of course, there were inkling of who he was. Once a devotee who had been a childhood friend of Guruji spent an evening with me. He told me an amazing story of Guruji's early student years. They were giving an exam together in class. A boy stopped writing as there was no ink in his fountain pen. A very young Guruji looked at him, asked for his pen, blew at it, and the pen started writing again. The teacher saw what had transpired and suspected the kids were trying to exchange information. He asked them what they were talking about. Guruji told the teacher exactly what had happened. The teacher straightaway took Guruji to the principal, who gave Guruji another pen and asked him to fill it up. Guruji did just that, to his considerable astonishment. My takeaway is that our Guruji did not acquire those capabilities through some kind of sadhana or tapasya. He was born divine. He was an avatar, a descent of Godhead into a human body. He did not become enlightened or attain self-realization. He is forever Shiva. Few personal instances of his divinity happened with my wife and me. These are instances we can only term supernatural, as way beyond the scope of human understanding. We are privy to instances that make the laws of physics look foolish and appear to defy the known theory of time and space. Instances that mocked at the foundation of all natural laws. Cause must come before effect. Devotees would come to know as time went by that Guruji could manifest prasad out of thin air. He would get prasad for his Sangat from Sachkhand, the highest abode of divinity. I came across devotees who had the great fortune of partaking of this prasad and shared that experience to us as a Sangat. I would often yearn for this blessing from Guruji Maharaj myself. One night, as I was sleeping, I had Maharaj's darshan. He gave me a sweet, likely a barfi. He was sitting on a chair with a table in front. He told me to take the barfi, but not to finish it completely and to keep it for later. He instructed me about when that prasad would be used. Though it was not a Saturday, I still decided to visit Empire State the next day and have Guruji's darshan. My wife was content with her Saturday routine and decided to give it a pass. A few other devotees agreed to accompany me. We were all in the mandir on that day. Halfway through a Shabad, music stopped. Somebody whispered in my ear that Maharaj was going to distribute divine prasad. I had goosebumps. My dream was about to come true. Guruji's hands were folded a little above his forehead, and then out of nowhere, a sweet appeared in his hands. It was a small peda. There were about 250 devotees present that day. Colonel Joshi uncle told the Sangat seated in the rear, which included me, to go to the first floor and wait. Very reluctantly, I moved to the first floor, thinking that the little quantity of prasad would be finished much before my turn. That thought made me sad. I wanted to stay back. I wanted the divine prasad. The previous night's dream was still fresh in my mind. I sat there with Grewal uncle seated by my side. I made my apprehension known to him that I was fortunate enough to be present when divine prasad was being produced, but it would be over by the time my turn came. That was not fair. He pressed my shoulder and said that even if the whole of Delhi showed up, the prasad was still not finished. I would get it, he proclaimed. Minutes later, the Sangat from the first floor was called down and we queued up. I saw an old devotee beside Guruji holding the prasad carefully on a white handkerchief spread over his hands. When my turn came, Maharaj gave me a substantial amount of prasad. I'm sure if everybody had that much prasad, it would have been finished amongst the first 20 devotees. But the entire Sangat had that prasad and half of it still remained. That portion was given to the devotee holding the divine prasad in his hands. He was asked to take it home as his blessing. Partaking the Sachkhand prasad was not like eating anything else. As soon as it was on the tongue, its effect was felt all over the body. As I put it in my mouth, it instantly reached and cooled in my entire body. The prasad was full of fragrance. I had a little, and as advised by Grewal uncle, took home the rest. I remembered my dream, shared a bit with the family, and kept the rest as instructed. Even all these years since, it continues to be the most precious benediction we have at home. I await Maharaj's instructions for what to do with it. It is a truism for us devotees that anybody who gets Maharaj's divine prasad is blessed. My doubts, if any, were dispelled by Grewal uncle. Those days we always found ourselves sitting together on the first floor, where the old Sangat sat while the new ones got an opportunity to be seated in front of Maharaj. On one occasion, Maharaj was seated on the cabinet next to the kitchen in his informal attire as we both arrived one after the other. I bowed my head, received his blessings, and took my place on the first floor. Grewal uncle also came up and sat next to me. Grewal uncle told me, Commander, Guruji has blessed you. He told me what had just happened. Guruji had said, Tere dost ka kalyan kar diya. I have blessed your friend. He didn't understand the reference to the friend. So he asked Guruji, "Keda dost Guruji?" Guruji said, "Oh, tera dost, commander." Could there be a bigger blessing for me than this? With this continued blessing, I have become a better and improved version of my earlier self in every possible way. I can't take any credit for being who I am and doing what I do. We, the Sangat, are Guruji's blessings on display. On our own, we are good for nothing. For him to bring about such transformation is only possible because he is Shiva, the Lord who can rewrite destiny. The production of Sachkhand Prasad is but one example of this divinity. What my wife experienced at Bade Mandir on another occasion was literally out of this world. Her experience, difficult to grasp at the time it happened, clearly shows how his divinity is everywhere, acting in several dimensions, different realms, and all at the same time. Nobody ever gets elevated spiritually without an element of suffering. It is essential. If we are not suffering, we are getting nowhere. When we are enjoying life, when we are enjoying the physical world, we are essentially spending money from our bank account. But when we suffer, we put money back in our bank account. That is why only a poor, weak, or sick person is in a position to bless others. Likewise, the elderly who are suffering the physical infirmity that time brings also acquire the ability to bless. When we take care of them, we receive their blessings. Our parents can bless us. Our elders can bless us because they too have endured suffering. The rich and famous can't bless us. Remember, a blessing is something which one can only give, one has it. Suffering empowers us. With suffering, our karmic bank account swells and that can be shared with others. Never look at suffering unwelcomely. Occasionally, it is the suffering, present or impending, that opens the door of Guruji's darbar for us. If we suffer even as Guruji's Sangat, be rest assured that is a part of Guruji's plan to get us rid of our karma and make us a worthy Sangat. Guruji and we are in this process together. We suffer but a fraction of our dues, while Guruji takes on the remaining majority of the suffering upon himself. All this while, he won't leave our hand. No matter what he has to do, what he has to endure, and how much time it takes, he will make us blessings ready. For some, this whole process may take just a minute. For others, it may take 100 lifetimes. But happen it will. And in this journey of life and beyond, the Guru is forever going to hold our hand. The following experience of my wife will clarify this point further. It was the festive and joyous occasion of Guruji's birthday in 2004. My wife was inside the hall while I was attending to my seva, conducted in front of the kitchen. From inside the hall, up to 50 devotees were being taken out for langar at a time, so that more could be ushered into Guruji's presence. Suddenly, the kitchen paused, serving langar temporarily. Simultaneously, a large number of devotees landed from Punjab and entered the hall. Because of this rush of devotees, my wife found herself stuck right in front of Guruji. Unable to move in either direction, Sevaks asked devotees to sit down where they were. My wife couldn't dare sit right next to Guruji Maharaj. Guruji looked at her and told her to sit down right there. Guruji himself removed his jyotis and sat cross-legged on the asana, thus creating additional space for her to sit comfortably. As she sat, she was pushed further towards Guruji by the devotees from behind. Guruji's sacred jyotis touched her right knee, and she was so close to Maharaj. Great blessing. As the kitchen began serving langar after a while, she had to get up and go. She felt excruciating pain in the right knee, just where the jyotis had touched her. She later told me that it was the worst kind of pain she had ever felt in her life, way more than what she had to bear during childbirth. One would rightly think that because she was so close to Guruji and had inadvertently touched Guruji's jyotis, there could have been no bigger blessing. As she exited the main hall for langar, she found herself in a different world. Langar wasn't being served there. Fully bearded devotees clad in white were simply floating in the air as they moved around chatting or singing happily to themselves. My wife was disoriented, in pain, sweating profusely and crying. Resting her head against a wall, my wife began looking for me. She approached one devotee who appeared familiar and asked him to look for me and convey that she was sick and in urgent need of medical attention. She wanted me to take her home immediately. This devotee completely ignored her. Then she approached another devotee, but he also ignored her. She tried to grab his hand to stop him physically, but her hand passed through him as if he was made up of smoke. She could not touch or grab him. Completely dejected, my wife dragged herself to the wall next to the kitchen and stood there crying. She thought she was dead because the people were phantasmal. She cried anew as she realized that she had not bid farewell to the children and she couldn't go back. She was very angry with me for not being there to help her when she needed me the most. Even when I'm doing seva, I regularly come around to inquire about her well-being. That day too, I tried but could not spot her. I even asked around for her, but devotees couldn't tell me of her whereabouts. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. We later figured out that my wife and I were in front of the kitchen at the same time, but she was in a different realm. My wife saw a bearded person hand her some langar. She saw only his beard and his feet, which reminded her of Guruji. She protested that she was in pain and didn't want to eat anything, but ended up with the plate in her hand anyway. She noticed that the langar was not food as we knew it, but a charcoal-colored substance. This person disappeared after giving her the plate. Realizing that his feet resembled those of Guruji's, she somehow persuaded herself to eat whatever that langar was. And then the langar plate vanished from her head. She felt like vomiting but did not want to do so in front of the kitchen area and thought of going to the washroom but was unable to walk. Yet, as she thought about going to the washroom, she was there. She vomited some black substance. Guruji only knows what it was. Immediately after, she found herself back in the normal plane of things. The washroom was as it used to be. The whole area where she had this experience had been snowy white with everybody in white clothes. It had now dematerialized and she was back in the mandir. She came out of the washroom and the pain was gone. She walked but was sweating from head to toe. She came looking for me and sat on the steps leading to the main darbar hall. At around 2 p.m., I finally found her there. She looked sick and miserable. I got really scared. At that moment, all that she wanted was to go home. I explained that I could not take her home without Guruji's permission. I, like other devotees, had the conviction that we were always safe inside the mandir. She protested, but I reiterated that we would go home only after receiving Guruji's permission. Even though I did not know what she had been through, I knew she was safe inside the mandir with Guruji. She protested that Guruji would hold me back for another hour while she would be suffering. I went inside and Guruji instantly granted me permission. He obviously knew. We drove back home. My wife woke me up the next morning with a cup of tea, and my reaction was to ask her to rest. She said there was nothing wrong with her and that she was fine and pain-free. She told me what had happened, yet I was none the wiser. We have always wondered what this experience meant. We had known that Guruji said his other world is mine. So I believed that she had gone to Guruji's afterlife world and came back. We could only make some sense of this experience after we heard a devotional Shabad that elaborated on how satsangs are significant. This Shabad's key line is, Aisi lal तुझ बिन कौन करे, गरीब नवाज कुसैया मेरा, माथे छतर धरे. The Vyakhya or explication of this Shabad tells how the king of Mandi became a follower of Shri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj and would visit him for darshans and satsangs. One day at the camp of the Guru Maharaj, he heard a devotee humming a verse which said that what had been decreed could not be overwritten. The king asked Guru Maharaj if no alteration or mending of destiny was possible. If we had to go through the effects of karma, what was the point of satsangs? Guru Maharaj deferred answering him that day, and the king went back to his palace. That night, the king had a dream. He saw that he had become a sweeper in his next life and died in poverty, leaving behind his wife and children. The next day, Guru Maharaj took him for a ride on horseback to a village. The village reacted with amazement and some indignation at the king's presence. A sweeper who looked just like the king and was of the same age had passed away the day before. They were annoyed that now he was traipsing about in royal robes instead of taking care of his family. His wife and children also couldn't accept him as king. The king maintained he was the king of Mandi, even though he felt sorry for the plight of the family. The villagers insisted that he was the recently deceased sweeper. The Guru stood apart, smiling, and when the problem came to him for resolution, he asked the villagers to dig up the sweeper's grave. If a body was found, it would quite conclusively prove the sweeper was dead and that this was not a masquerade. And so it was. The body of the sweeper was indeed found in the grave. As Guru Maharaj and his royal follower rode back, the king again wanted to know the benefit of attending a satsang. Guru Maharaj told him that he had just experienced the benefit. Guru Maharaj explained that in the life to come, the king had to be born as a lowly sweeper and live up to 35 years, getting married, having children, and passing his days in penury. But because he had come to the Satguru, or Purn Guru, one entire life cycle of his misery causing karmas had been washed away through a single dream. The karmas had to be born, but through the supreme grace of the Satguru, those karmas were made to give their fruits in dimension where suffering was made unreal. As Guruji also used to say, Shul ko sui bana diya. That is, the terrible suffering was lessened to as little as a needle's jab's worth of pain. We understood that my wife had also gone through an experience in a dimension where Guruji had converted and truncated her suffering to just a few hours of pain and traveled to his other abode. Such is our Guruji. There is nothing beyond him and can never be. As Shiva, he enjoys complete freedom. There is none that can thwart his will. He obeys no human strictures related to social mores or conduct. He only adopts these to please and bless his devotees. Witness Shiva's marriage to Mother Parvati, where he dropped his ascetic dress code for that of a groom. Similarly, Guruji too flouted the conventional norms of attire associated with saints. Even small incidents show his overlordship of all the lokas, all the different dimensions of existence. During a major function at Bade Mandir, there was a sudden influx of sangat requiring additional langar preparation. I was asked to go and procure some wheat flour. It was 1 o'clock at night. All the shops had closed. Accompanied by another senior sevak, I went looking for wheat. When the Guru gives a seva, the Guru also creates a situation where that seva is indeed fulfilled. This is the beauty of faith. We stopped at a small house where an elderly lady was sleeping outside on a cot. With folded hands, we addressed her as grandma and simply asked her for flour. She told us to pick up 2 bags from inside her home. We were complete strangers and didn't even have money to pay her at that time. We told her we would settle the payment the day after, and she said that was okay. And we were back at the satsang in 10 minutes. This satsang may on the face of it appears trivial, but behind the successful completion of the seva is the Guru's large and overpowering presence, always reminding us that he is with us. We do not need anyone else in our life. He is all that we need. All we have to do is to have faith in him. We did not question even for a second that we would not find wheat flour at that odd hour. I'm sure that grandma also received Guruji's blessing that day. Similarly, during a Diwali night at Empire State, Guruji Maharaj decided to distribute seeds to the Sangat as prasad. He asked the sevaks to get hold of some mithai. The sevaks who went for the Guru-inspired errand found a single shop open, again late at night, and they emptied it of the mithai and brought it all back. I had not gone out with the sevaks then, and I remember Guruji, just to make sure that everybody got the same prasad, mixed all the mithai together and with his hands. Everybody got everything, and that too in huge quantity. That was a pointer to his boundless generosity. Maharaj always gave us a lot to eat. The other thing he gave us in heaps was his grace. That Guruji is Lord Shiva should now be evident. One of the foremost characteristics of Shiva is his compassion. His love is such that he takes others' suffering upon himself. There is no better example of this than Lord Shiva drinking the poison or halal that came up from the churning of the ocean lest it kills all creation. All the gods drank up the amrit or nectar of immortality. As the supreme yogi, he keeps the poison in his throat, not allowing it to come down to his belly where all the words reside. Ever since, he has been known as Neelkantha or the blue-throated one. All Shivlings have a vessel atop them from which water drops to soothe the heat of the tapas Lord Shiva undertakes to neutralize the poison. The readiness and ease with which Guruji took his devotees' problems upon himself are legendary. Just like Lord Shiva consumed the poison, Maharaj drew away the poisons of our life. As this is not a theoretical or philosophical position, each day Maharaj would suffer on account of accepting sufferings of his Sangat upon himself. A devotee asked him once why Guruji had to suffer. By way of answer, he asked the devotee a counter question. What did she do? This lady was a politician. She said she took care of the people of constituency. Guruji told her that taking care of his devotee was his job. That is God's job. That is the job of the Guru, to alleviate his Sangat of their pain, suffering, and their problems. In fact, even devotees came to partake of the Shiva Tattva when they are compassionate and ready to help others or try to ease their suffering. There is another parallel between Lord Shiva and Guruji. Shiva is the consummate yogi. He is in samadhi even when he is in the world. He does not need a separate time or dimension to be meditating. Resultantly, his body is of pure light, and it also generates heat. Devotees should know that the kitchen cabinet, a shelf space outside the kitchen, on which Guruji sat informally, was affected similarly. The intense heat of Guruji's aura blackened the varnish. It was there for all to see. Another sign of the divine Guru, no matter what the weather, Guruji would take a freezing iced sweet lemon drink, as related in chapter on him coming to Gurgaon in January. Once Ma Parvati asked Lord Shiva, how is he to be pleased? He said he was not easily pleased with yajnas, rituals, and exoteric acts. He simply wants love and devotion. Give him that and Bholenath becomes the beloved of his devotees. Same is the case with Guruji. He took all his devotees away from all hypocrisy, pakhand, and only wanted sincerity of action and devotional longing. As Shiva, Guruji ignores the deficiencies of his devotees and stands by them. He blesses everybody, no matter who they are and what their standing is. He doesn't pick and choose. He grants them refuge at his feet. The overriding qualification is their love for him. His stories are many. He himself is infinite. As our scriptures say, Hari Anand, Hari Katha Ananda. Don't try to understand Guruji. Just be happy. When you have Guruji in your life, there's no need for you to compare destinies with anybody else. As far as the Sangat is concerned, they are here with Guruji and they will always be with Guruji. Guruji used to say that my Sangat is with me here in this earthly world and with me in afterlife as well. Who else can give us this assurance but God himself? We are not going to be lost ever. We will always be with our beloved Guruji. Stay blessed as always. Be with Maharaj and always live under the umbrella of his blessings. Jai Guruji.